Hi again. Okay, we're here with Dr. Katie. No.
No.
No. So yes, we're going to jump right in because I like keeping these videos pretty short, around 30 minutes. So if you could just introduce yourself and tell everyone what it is that you do and your journey.
Well, Emily, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to be on your program. I'm so impressed with your journey and all that you have done.
Thank
My
you.
name is Dr. Katie Null, and I live a fairy tale life. I want to tell you, everyone in my story is good, but I didn't see the good until later. So my fairy tale life is that I'm the princess, and my Prince Charming have been together for 50 years. We have three amazing children that are all incredibly successful and have happy mates and have adorable children. Yes, that's right. I have the team five adorables. We have five adorable granddaughters who are oh, just wonderful. My Prince Charming and I live in a fabulous castle, and we have an amazing carriage, and we have a charmed life. It wasn't always that way. You see, when I was born, at the time, my mother in the 1950s, okay, I want you to think about 1950s, left her husband, my father. They were living in San Francisco at the time. And although my father was very excited when he heard that he was going to be a father, they were in their 20s, very young. He was in the Navy. And he called his mother to tell her very excitedly that he was going to be a father. His mother, one of the mean witches, had said, "I'm too young to be a grandmother. You have to get rid of that." So my father, who I'm sure had conflicting feelings, told his wife that they had to get rid of the pregnancy. She had been raised as a good Catholic and couldn't see the value in that. So she asked to borrow the one car and to go get some cigarettes. So she took that one car in San Francisco in the 1950s and drove that car from San Francisco all the way to a small town in southeast Kansas. And I think about that sometimes. I mean, it was the 1950s. She was a single pregnant mom on a journey. Where'd she get the money? She didn't have credit cards. Where'd she sleep? She was driving this car. There weren't highways and freeways back then. How did she know the map? How'd she get there? But she did. And she ended up living with her parents when I was born. She was living with her parents when I was born, and she went to work because she had to provide for her and her daughter. And I was only a few weeks old when my father reappeared, ostensibly to see his new baby. So I understand he picked me up and held me up and put me back down and asked to borrow the car to get some cigarettes. Can you guess what he did? He drove that car from southeast Kansas all the way back to San Francisco, leaving my mother with no car. So fast forward, my mother ended up marrying and divorcing 4 husbands. She had 3 children until, well, wait until the story continues. She had 3 children. So I was raised with a half brother and a half sister who are dear to me. They were my siblings, but I grew up knowing that I had a different last name and a different father. As time went on, and my mother, I'm sure, to try and heal her wounds or whatever, took a very strong liking to alcohol, and as a narcissistic personality, and as an alcoholic, it became difficult to live with her. I mean, you can tell she was divorced 4 times. In the end, all 3 of her children ended up running away from home. I left home when I was 17. I was still in high school. I was a junior in high school, and I didn't know what to do. You see, we moved every time there was a different situation. I ended up going to 12 different schools in 5 different states. And I was in a relatively new place, no support system, and didn't know what to do. But I knew I could see a difference in people whose lives were different than mine. And in my mind, what I saw was their difference was because of education. So for me, education was really what was going to get me to a different place. That's what I was holding on to. So I'm a junior in high school, and I didn't have any place to live. So I was homeless for a while. I slept under the bushes in Nebraska for a while, and school was getting ready to start, and I knew I had to have some place to study and to live. And of course, we didn't have computers back then, and so I didn't know what to do. A few of the people that I'd gotten to know over the months that we had been there found out about my situation and offered that I stayed at their place. I can still remember a friend letting me sleep at her place. And of course, we couldn't tell her parents. My mom never went looking for me or never filed a missing child report because I don't know why. I don't know why. I'm guessing she was probably glad that it was one less mouth to feed, one less to have to worry about. But nobody really knew where I was, and apparently nobody cared. So when I was staying with my friends, they would hide me from their parents, and they would bring me food to their bedrooms, and I was kind of a hidden suspect, only I hadn't done anything. So when school started, I went to the guidance counselor and I said, I really don't have any place to live. Is there anything you can do for me? And they said, oh, well, let's get you into a foster home. I said, okay, whatever. Will it allow me to continue school? And they're like, yeah, that'll work. So I lived in a foster home my senior year, and they were kind to me. They gave me my own bedroom, which was amazing. I'd never had that before, and they were nice to me. And so I stayed there for a year. In the meantime, so back up a few years, when I was 14 years old, I met my father for the first time. Well, really for the second time, but the first time that I could remember. And we had driven to Kansas City. He was flying into town, and I met him. And he had been like this pedestal parent, right? He was up on that pedestal all my life because he was going to be the one to rescue me from the junk that I was going through, from the constant moving, from the constant disruptions, from just the chaos in my life. There was more, but we'll leave it at chaos. And I met him, and I was so impressed. I mean, Emily, he was so cool, and he was handsome, and he was smart, and he just had everything. And I was like, wow, that's my dad, and how lucky am I? So that was when I was 14. So by the time I got into my foster home, and my dad was living in California, I was in the Midwest. By the time I was in my foster home, I had rekindled communication with my dad. And in rekindling communication with my dad, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do after high school. And he offered to let me stay with him in San Diego. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. This is great. So I went to my high school graduation. No one else attended. I went there on a Friday night, and on a Saturday morning, I got on a plane and flew away and left everything. Got to San Diego. My dad picked me up, and he was even cooler. He was driving like this little Fiat Spider sports car, and he had a beard, and he was so smart and savvy, and he drove me out of San Diego. I was like, well, I've been writing letters to your address in San Diego, and we're driving out of San Diego. I wonder why. But we just kept driving, and we got to a very little town, was little then, in north of San Diego called Poway. That's where his ex-wife and two of his other children lived. And as I walked in the door, seemingly that was the first anyone knew I was coming. And now in retrospect, I can see, he was like in his 40s, and here's this 18-year-old fresh girl, out in Nebraska. He couldn't have me live with him in his studio apartment in San Diego. Now, why did he have a studio apartment in San Diego, and why did he divorce his second wife? Well, he left me at his second wife's house, and actually she was a very damaged lady herself, and that's a whole nother story. But she had just been let out of jail because she had hired a hitman to kill my father. And so that's where I was left, and I was left there. She, in order to dull her pain, was a drug addict and actually was a mule. That means she carried drugs back and forth from Mexico to San Diego, and wanted to know if I wanted to be a mule as well, and I politely declined. She introduced me to porn and wanted to know if I wanted to be involved, and I politely declined. In the meantime, the neighbor lady had a young lady who was about my age who was going to these dances, and I all of a sudden am on the scene, and she said, "Hey, why don't you come to these dances with me?" I said, "Oh, yeah, sure, let's go," And we went to a dance in San Diego. You can date surfers, have no money, hippies, have no money, or sailors, have no money, or officers, they have money. So she took me to an officers dance where we met like really cute guys, right? I met an amazing officer there. He had these John Lennon glasses and very polite, very sweet. And he asked me out to go out on a date the next night. And I said, "Oh, that'd be great. Let's do that." And so he drove all the way out to Poway to pick me up. And I didn't realize it. I only realized it about 16 years ago, but I'm celiac. And at the time, one of the manifestations of celiac is I had anemia, which meant I would fall asleep like that. And once I fell asleep, you could not wake me. It was like trying to wake the dead. So he came to pick me up for my date, and my half sister on that side said, "She's asleep." And he's like, "It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon and she's asleep. What's So he left, obviously a little angry. Next week, my neighbor invited me to another, they call them hog calls, because it was officer dances and the women all came. And we went to a different location about an hour away to another officer's dance. And this guy came up and was demanding an apology from me. I'm like, "I can't remember who you are." I have no memory of things. Turned out it was that same guy. And that same guy, last week, we celebrated our 47th wedding anniversary. So where's the fairy tale in all this? Well, you see, my mother was in a lot of pain, and she did the best she could. Why did I meet my dad at 14? Because she had sent all 3 of her kids away so that she could give birth to her 4th child. We did not know until after she had died, years after she died. She never told anyone that she had a 4th child with her 3rd husband, and they gave him up for adoption. The only reason I know is because he spent years trying to find us. And then when my father died at age 49, turns out we were going through his papers. Same year I was born, he and someone had a child that they gave up for adoption. Now, why is this a fairy tale? Because you see, I had always wanted to be rescued. Did my dad rescue me? In a way. If he had not rescued me, if I had not been in the situation that my mother helped create, if my dad had not rescued me by giving me a ticket, right, to San Diego, I never would have met my Prince Charming. I never would have this fabulous life that I have now. So everyone played their roles, and everyone in the story, as it turned out, was doing their very best. That's my fairy tale.
That's amazing. Wow. What you've been through. Whoa. I need to hold on a second. Okay. Could you
Oh,
please
I
go
forgot
on?
pieces of this. I forgot that
Go
this
on.
is an important piece. So remember, education was important to me,
Yes.
and my dad said he would move me to California and he would pay for my college. Boom! Mind blown, right? Right?
Right.
So he moved me to Poway, little tiny town, and I looked around and I'm like, "Where's the college?" "Oh, it's up the road in the next town in Escondido." I said, "Okay, that's great. So where's my car?" "Oh, there's no car." Now, I don't know how familiar you are with Southern California, especially in the 1970s, but there weren't like bicycle paths between towns. It was all freeways. You couldn't walk. You couldn't do anything else. But education was important to me. What was I going to do to be able to get from Poway to Escondido to go to the junior college and get my education? I hitchhiked, going and back. And sometimes I got into
Wow.
vehicles that I probably shouldn't have gotten into. A lot of times the highway patrol would pick me up and they say, "What are you doing out here?" And I'm like, I'm going to school."
Wow.
Yeah. And that was another thing that my knight in shining armor did. When I first met him, he was getting ready to go out to sea and he was getting ready to put his car in storage. He heard my story. I had known him literally only a few days. And he said, "You know what? Instead of me putting my car in storage, why don't you use it while I'm at sea?"
Wow.
Who does that? Who does that?
Your future husband.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what was it that you studied?
So, so because I don't enjoy writing papers, although I'm in the process of writing my third, fourth, and fifth books consecutively, and I'm not good
That
at
is new.
labs. Yeah, I ended up being a mathematician. So I went to a junior college, which is supposed to be a 2-year college. I went there for 4 years, because I didn't have anyone to tell me what I was supposed to do. In the process of that, we ended up getting married. I only married him because he kept asking me to marry him, kept asking me to marry him. I'm like, "Nope, nope, nope." I said, "It has nothing to do with you, but I've got a plan. I've got a plan. And my plan does not include marriage." Why does it not include marriage? My mother married and divorced 4 times. My father married and divorced twice. My grandparents married and divorced. My great grandparents married and divorced. Why would I get married? Until he said, "Do you know what? If we get married, we get an extra $155 a month." I'm like, "Done." So that weekend we drove to Las Vegas and I said, "But here's the deal. Once you get out of the Navy, there is no reason to stay married. So we're getting a divorce." And he said, "Okay." He got
Wait, and
out of
how many years are you married now? You said you
the
just
47.
47 years. Wow. Insane. Wow.
It is. It really is. It
Wow.
really is. Yeah.
Uh, okay, wait, so you studied math in college and
Yes.
then
And then after I finished, well, he got out of the Navy, and he said, "So I'm ready to get divorced, right?" And he says, "Oh, um, the Navy will move us anywhere in the United States. Where would you like to live?" I was like, "Whoa." And my response was, "I've always heard San Francisco is nice." Now, what's interesting, Emily, is it was only recently that I put the two things together. I was conceived in San Francisco. When we
oh,
first drove into San Francisco and we were in the county line, I turned to Bob and I said, my husband, I said, "I feel like I'm home." And didn't realize it at the time, right? I've been in
wow.
chills now just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And so we moved up to San Francisco. I transferred up there. I finished my bachelor's degree in mathematics with a minor in computer science. And at that same time, my husband was out of the Navy trying to find out what he wanted to do. And he decided that he was going to go up to law school. And I'm like, "Great, there's tons of law school in California. This will be fabulous." Emily, he was born and raised in the South. And so he applied to 11 law schools. 10 of them were in the South, and one was in California. He was accepted to 10 law schools, and one rejected him. Guess which one?
California.
So by that time, I had kind of gotten used to him, and so we moved to Georgia, and he was going to law school, and I didn't know what to do. We still had no children, and I was like, "Well, maybe I can get my master's degree," because remember, education was important to me. And so, sure enough, I was able to get my master's degree, and the University of Georgia was very generous and paid me as a teacher's assistant. So that was free, and that was great. And I started, and I got everything but 3 courses finished when my husband said, "Oh, you know what? All the attorneys are applying for the jobs a year before they graduate. You need to apply for a job now." So I applied for jobs, and at that time in the 80s, they were desperate for people with computer knowledge. And so I got job offers from Houston, from, I mean, all over the United States. And I was like, oh my gosh. Well, I'd also, by this time, also had our first child. And I was like, I don't think I want to live in Houston while you finish up your last year of law school in, in, in Georgia. And so I ended up taking a job in Florida, and our oldest and I moved down to Florida while Bob finished his degree in Georgia, and I was still 3 classes away. So this was before the internet. This was before we had fax machines. That was it. And I finished 2 of those 3 classes long distance, which meant I didn't go to any class. I just basically had friends that I knew that were in the class mail the notes to me, and then I flew up at the end of the term. I flew up to Georgia to take my final exam. So I finished 2 classes like that.
Wow.
So I only had 1 class left, and this 1 class left was really kind of a joke. You basically sat in a closet and provided statistical analysis for people that were doing research, because my master's was in statistics. And I wasn't going to sit in a closet for, all these weeks, because by now we had 3 children under the age of 5, and I didn't want to leave them. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do it. And Bob, God bless him, kicked me out of the house. And he said, you are going to Georgia, and you are going to do whatever's necessary to finish that 1 class so you get your master's degree. Well, I had a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and not quite a 1-year-old who was still nursing. And I'm telling you, Emily, all the way up to Georgia, I cried. I was just sobbing. At one point, I had to pull over into a rest stop and just bawl my eyes out because I missed my baby so much. But I also knew education was important to me. And so I drove up there and I went to talk to the people, and that was not fun. My advisor at the time was a world-renowned statistician and somebody I hadn't worked with in the past. The prior department chair had propositioned me and other young ladies, which is one of the reasons why I didn't mind leaving. And so when the world-renowned statistician turned out to be my advisor, the first thing he questioned was my grades and how I got them. And I'm like, no, I got those grades honestly. And so he put me through a rigor, and I ended up having to write a 48-page statistical analysis of data to be able to satisfy his academic scholastic requirements. He still wasn't happy. And other people who had read it said, this is equal to like a Ph.D. dissertation. I said, well, that's nice. I just want to get my degree. So I got my degree. And when I was 18, Emily, and it sounds like you may have done something similar, I had a list of things that I was going to accomplish by a certain age, right? And so number 1 was, by the time I was 25, I was going to have my PhD. Now, at 18, I had no idea what a PhD was. I had just heard that that was the highest level of education you could get, and I was going to get that. And number 2 was I was going to buy a house. And I remember putting in parentheses, I didn't care if I had furniture. Now, can you imagine, with me moving as much as I did when I was growing up, that having a house that was permanent was pretty important to me? Yeah. And number 3 I had was I was going to buy and have paid for a car. Because you see, all my life, we were living on layaway. We never had enough money. We never had enough, sometimes didn't have enough food. We never had enough clothes. I sewed almost all my clothes growing up, except for one time when we had a big shopping trip. And I distinctly remember that. 2 times. One time, stepdad took us all to Kmart and got us 3 outfits, which was huge. And we got 3 pairs of kids' sneakers for school. It was like so big. And another time when somehow Mom came into money, and I still don't know where, and took my sister and I, and we got like 5 outfits. It was huge. It was amazing. But most of the time I sewed my clothes. And I can't even remember where I was. Oh, okay. So I ended up finishing my master's. So number 4 on my list, I can't even remember what it is, but it had nothing to do with marriage, relationship, children, nothing. Okay. Number 5, and the reason why I know that, because I remember number 5. Number 5 on my list was, when I'm 25, I will begin dating. because I'd seen all the messes that other people had gotten into when relationships got in the way of their life, right? Now, in reality, when I was 25, I was finishing up my master's. So I was like, okay, that's check because I'm working towards it, right? Number two, I hadn't bought a house, but I was managing apartments. So it was no rent. So I kind of like, okay. Number three, I had bought a car and paid cash for it and kept it for 46 years.
Wow.
And number four, remember, I can't remember, but number five about beginning dating. Yeah. By the time I was 25, I had been married 5 years, was pregnant with my first, and that wasn't on the list anywhere, was it? Mm-mm, no. But by the time my youngest child, our third, was 25, and all my kids had graduated from college and had finished most of their graduate work, I got to go back to school. And I started and finished my PhD while I was working full time, and I got it finished in 4 years. So I have my PhD in math education.
Ah, amazing. And what do you do today?
So today I work at a college. So I help people get degrees in organizational management. I know all about that.
Wow.
And then on the side, I'm also a professional speaker for National Speakers Association, where I love to help people and show them how to dissolve their waffles.
Dissolve
So
the what?
waffles are worry, anxiety, fear, frustration, lethargy, exhaustion, and stress. And I do that based on a technique that I found while I was finishing up my PhD and did my research, because I wanted to help our math students who were struggling with, they just needed one more class to graduate, and math was holding them back. And I wanted to be able to find a way to help them get over their fear, their anxiety. And I ended up doing a TEDx talk on math anxiety and how I was helping students. And now I have clients all over the world that I work with to help them dissolve their waffles.
Amazing. And you said you had some books?
Yes. So my first book is called Create Your Fate, How to Survive the Circus. My second book that we just published this year is called Shower Blessings, Finding Time to Meditate in Our Busy Lives. The third book that's at the editors right now is called From Depressed to Success, and it's a 6-month study of how I worked with a a friend who was clinically depressed on 2 antidepressants and seeing a therapist regularly. And in conjunction with that, working with me. And in 6 months, she was no longer depressed. She was off her antidepressants and she was doing great. And then there is a book of my fairy tale life. So it's going to be my memoir about how everyone in the fairy tale is really good. And then I have a book called Conducting Business about becoming a leader as a band director. And then the other book is called Racing to the Red Light, about how we feel like we have to hurry up and hurry up and hurry up and do things in a certain order and a certain place. And really, how many times do you race? Do you have somebody racing to the red light and you get to the red light and you're both at the same place by then? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. Uh, Katie, you're incredible. Okay.
Oh, Emily,
Um,
you're the one that's incredible to be able to share all these stories with everyone and to encourage. I'm hoping that these stories do exactly what you want to do, which is to encourage others, to let them know that their life can be a fairy tale too.
oh, that's so beautiful. I hope so. I really do hope so. And I believe it. I believe that it's possible. And I mean, you're the walking, talking proof that you can go from chaos, insane chaos that's like hard to like really wrap your head around and to be wow and such an inspiring individual as yourself right now. That is incredible. Can I ask you what it sounds like education and this that kind of the desire, the drive for education was what kind of kept you going. Um, is I want to ask, like, what is one tool, or that you would you know recommend, or that kind of helped you through it? Was it this drive for education? Was there something else as well that helped you just not only survive but thrive?
I I don't know, Emily. I was in therapy for 4 years to try and find my balance. So I had weekly visits with a therapist. He was amazing. I mean, I'm so thankful for him. It was one of those things that I didn't see how much better I felt until I was finished, and I looked back and said, wow, I had no idea how bad it was. So therapy was very amazing. I have to say that I do believe that I've been protected and led by angels all my life. And I believe everyone else is too. It's just whether we recognize it or not. It's kind of like gravity. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not, it still exists.
Hmm.
um, so I do believe that I've been led by angels in so many situations. I can recount so many. Um, Recently, I have, as I mentioned, through my PhD research and in looking for something that was going to help people overcome their waffles, I did discover, and have been trained in a process called Emotional Freedom Technique, EFT, or it's called tapping. And had I to do it all over again, I know that my balance would have been faster, easier, smoother using tapping. And the reason why I know that is because I'm seeing such success with my clients in using it. You mentioned so many people that have gone so far. I have two good friends that you probably need to interview. One was sexually abused by her brother from the time she was 4 for over 20 years and has found balance. And another, when she was a child, a teenager in a upper middle class community, is when her father began pimping her out for
Wow.
years. And they're both strong survivors now. So I'll give you their names and you can
Yes.
contact them.
Wow.
But the one who suffered from her brother can tell you that the little bit of tapping that we have done together, what a source of peace it has been for her. It's an amazing tool. And in our times right now, Dr. Hans Seeley says that stress is caused by 3 different things: uncertainty, lack of information, and loss of control. I don't know about you, Emily, but I'm feeling all 3 of them right now. And when any
Mhm.
one of them can cause stress, and we are bombarded by all 3, a lot of us are feeling our waffles. And so, how do you dissolve them? So, right now, I'm offering a free introductory session for anyone who contacts me so that you can kind of get the effect of this tapping experience.
Amazing. Amazing, 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 amazing. I'm going to be contacting you.
I'm on my way.
Um, I definitely am interested because I've never tried it. I've heard a lot about tapping, but I've never tried it. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Well, I'm gonna end us here, unfortunately, although I could speak to you how long I've got. Oh, you're such an interesting person. Okay. Um, I will thank you very, very much. I'm
Thank you,
honored
Emily.
that you shared your story with me and with everyone else that will be watching this. I really think that you are truly inspiring. Um, thank you. Thank
Emily,
you.
I think you're inspiring, and what you're doing to share all these stories with others is going to be so uplifting and so helpful for so many people that are in pain. I
Hope so.
know, I know. So blessings to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye. See you soon.
Bye.